The envelope felt lighter than Daniel Reyes expected. He stood outside the glass-walled office, staring at the number printed on the bonus statement. 4,800. Last year, it had been nearly twice that. Behind him, the office Christmas party hummed with forced laughter and clinking glasses. Ahead of him, the elevator doors waited at the end of the corridor. Then someone said, "Daniel, don't get on that elevator." He turned. Standing beside the security desk was Victor Lang, the one man everyone at Halston Logistics had been taught to fear, the CEO's biggest rival. And he was holding a second envelope with Daniel's name on it. Daniel looked back at the elevator. The doors opened. Victor stepped closer. "You're going to want to hear why your bonus was cut." The doors began to close. And for the first time that night, Daniel forgot about the money. Daniel had worked at Halston Logistics for 11 years. He wasn't an executive. He didn't have a corner office or a polished title beneath his name. He was a regional operations supervisor, which mostly meant solving problems nobody else wanted to deal with. A delayed shipment at 2 a.m.? Daniel handled it. A warehouse manager quitting without notice? Daniel drove 3 hours to cover the shift. A driver stranded in the middle of nowhere? Daniel stayed on the phone until help arrived. He did it because people depended on him, and because every extra hour mattered. Since his wife Elena had died 4 years earlier, Daniel had been raising their 9-year-old daughter, Sophia, alone. Sophia had never complained about what they couldn't afford. That was the part that hurt most. She simply asked smaller questions now. "Do you think we could go to the beach this summer?" "Maybe," Daniel would say. "Can we fix Mom's old piano?" "Maybe." That bonus had been Daniel's maybe. A family vacation. The piano repair. A little breathing room. So when CEO Margaret Halston called him into her office that afternoon and quietly said, "I'm sorry, Daniel. The company had to adjust several bonuses this year." He nodded like it didn't matter. But he noticed something. The bonuses had not been cut for everyone. Only certain employees. And his had been cut almost exactly in half. Still, Daniel didn't argue. Margaret looked exhausted. Not cruel. Not smug. Just tired. There were dark circles beneath her eyes, and her desk was covered with financial reports. Daniel simply took the envelope and said, "I understand." He didn't, but he said it anyway. Now Victor Lang was standing in front of him, offering a second envelope. Daniel frowned. "Why would I take anything from you?" Victor gave a humorless smile. "Because I think you deserve to know what happened before you decide what kind of man you're going to be about it." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I'm not interested in helping you fight Margaret. I'm not asking you to." Victor handed him the envelope. Inside was a copy of a bank transfer. Daniel stared at the numbers. Halston Logistics had quietly moved millions of dollars 3 weeks earlier. Not to executive bonuses. Not to a new project. To a private emergency fund. Daniel looked up. Victor said, "Your CEO has been hiding something." The next morning, Daniel did something he almost never did. He left work early. Not because he was angry. Because he couldn't stop thinking. Margaret Halston had inherited the company from her father. Her reputation was built on confidence. Investors trusted her because she never appeared afraid. Yet recently, she had been different. Short meetings. Canceled appearances. Late-night lights burning in her office. Daniel drove home through pale winter sunlight and found Sophia sitting on the floor beside her mother's old piano. She was coloring something. "What's that?" Daniel asked. "A piano store." He smiled. Sophia pointed at the broken instrument. "When we fix it, I'm going to learn Mom's favorite song." Daniel sat beside her. He looked at the cracked keys, then at the bonus envelope still lying in his coat pocket. "I'm sorry, Soph." She looked confused. "For what?" "The piano might have to wait." Sophia thought about that for a moment. Then she placed her small hand over his. "Dad, Mom waited for things too." Daniel felt his throat tighten. Sophia went back to coloring. And Daniel sat there, realizing something uncomfortable. He was hurt. But maybe he had been so focused on his own disappointment that he hadn't asked why. The next morning, he found his answer. Not from Margaret. From an email accidentally sent to his department. A supplier had leaked information about a lawsuit. A major accident involving one of Halston's contracted freight carriers was heading toward court. The potential settlement could destroy the company. But that wasn't the twist. The twist was that Daniel recognized the date of the accident. He had been the operations supervisor on duty that night. And he remembered the warning. A maintenance report. A driver's complaint. A request he had escalated. Then watched disappear into corporate silence. For the first time, Daniel wondered if his bonus had anything to do with the accident. That evening, he went to Margaret's office. She was alone. No assistants. No executives. Just Margaret staring at the city through the window. Daniel placed the old maintenance report on her desk. She closed her eyes. "So Victor told you. Not everything." "No," she said quietly. "He wouldn't." Daniel waited. Margaret finally turned around. "The company ignored warnings before I became CEO. The accident happened 6 months after my father died. By the time I took over, the decisions had already been buried. And now the lawsuit found them." Daniel looked at her. "And the emergency fund? I'm trying to pay the settlement without layoffs." That answer landed harder than he expected. Margaret continued, "If we lose the case, hundreds of people could lose their jobs. So you cut bonuses?" "Yes." "Mine too." "Yes." Daniel looked down. "You could have told me." Margaret's expression changed. "I know." For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said something Daniel didn't expect. "I chose not to tell you because I knew you'd volunteer to give yours up." Daniel blinked. "That's exactly what I'm angry about." A small, tired laugh escaped her. Then her face became serious again. "But there's another problem." She opened a folder. Inside was a document bearing Daniel's signature. He stared at it. A safety approval form, dated the night before the accident. Daniel felt the room tilt. "I never signed that." "I know," Margaret said. Victor Lang had known it too. That was why he stopped Daniel at the elevator. Victor's company had been investigating Halston for months, hoping to buy it after the lawsuit crushed its value. But during the investigation, Victor's legal team discovered the forged document. Someone had used Daniel as a shield. If the truth came out the wrong way, Daniel could be blamed for approving unsafe equipment. Victor could have kept quiet. Instead, he had handed Daniel the evidence. Not because he cared about Halston, because his younger brother had died years ago in an industrial accident. And Victor had spent the rest of his life hating people who buried warnings. Suddenly, Daniel understood. The rival hadn't stopped him to steal him. He had stopped him because Daniel was walking away without knowing his name had been placed at the center of the disaster. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Investigators arrived. Executives panicked. News cameras waited outside the building. And Daniel's name appeared in questions he was terrified to answer. But he didn't run. He told the truth. He admitted what he remembered. He admitted what he didn't. And when investigators found that a former executive had forged his approval and hidden multiple safety warnings, the story changed. The company still paid a heavy settlement. Margaret still had to sell 2 regional facilities. No miracle erased the damage. Some employees were laid off. That part broke Daniel's heart. But the company survived. More importantly, the families affected by the accident finally received what they had been denied for years: accountability. 3 months later, Daniel stood in the same hallway outside Margaret's office. She handed him another envelope. His bonus. The missing half had been restored. Daniel stared at it, then pushed it back. Margaret frowned. "You earned it." "I know." "Then take it." Daniel smiled faintly. "I am taking something." The next morning, he walked into a small music repair shop with Sophia. The owner opened the piano bench and examined the worn instrument Daniel and Elena had bought at a yard sale years ago. Sophia waited anxiously. "Can you fix it?" she asked. The old repairman smiled. "Yes." Weeks later, Daniel sat in their living room as Sophia pressed her fingers against the newly repaired keys. The first notes were clumsy, uneven, beautiful. Daniel closed his eyes. He could almost hear Elena laughing from the kitchen. Sophia looked over. "Dad." "Yeah." "Do you think Mom can hear me?" Daniel swallowed. Then he smiled. "I think she never stopped listening." Outside, winter sunlight filled the room. Daniel had lost half his bonus, then nearly lost his name. But somewhere between betrayal, fear, and truth, he gained something money could never buy. He learned that sometimes the worst moment isn't the one that takes something from you. Sometimes it's the moment that stops you from walking away before you discover what truly matters. And sometimes, the person standing in your way is the one who refuses to let you face the truth alone.